Have you ever sat in a room so quiet that you could hear your own heart breaking? I'm sitting in that silence right now. I'm looking at a photograph on our fireplace mantle. In the photo, we look perfect. David has his arm around my waist, his smile wide and confident, the look of a man who has conquered the world. And me? I'm looking at him like he's the only thing that matters. People used to tell us we were the gold standard. 12 years of marriage, a beautiful home, 2 successful careers. We were the couple that everyone invited to dinner because our happiness made them believe that maybe, just maybe, marriage wasn't a trap. But photos are just paper and ink. They don't show the rot underneath. They don't show the messages hidden in deleted folders. They don't show the way a husband's eyes go cold when he thinks his wife isn't looking. For months, I lived in a house of mirrors. I saw what I wanted to see. I saw the man I married, the man I supported when he had nothing but a degree and a dream. I saw the partner who promised to protect me. I didn't see the monster until it was too late. In exactly 4 hours, David is going to walk through the front door. It's his 40th birthday. There are 100 guests arriving. The catering is set. The champagne is on ice. The tribute video I made for him is ready to be projected on the big screen in the garden. David thinks tonight is the crowning moment of his life. He thinks he's going to stand on that stage, receive his promotion, and celebrate another year of being the man who has it all. What he doesn't know is that I'm the one who really has it all. I have the bank records. I have the photos of him with Chloe. I have the recordings of him laughing about how boring I've become. Tonight, I'm not just the hostess. I'm the judge, and before the cake is even cut, David's perfect world is going to go up in flames. But before I tell you how I burned it down, I need to tell you how it started. Because to understand the revenge, you have to understand the depth of the betrayal. You have to understand how much I gave and how little he thought it was worth. David wasn't always the man in the $3,000 suit. When I met him, he was wearing a worn-out hoodie and shoes with holes in the soles. We were 24 years old, living in a studio apartment that smelled like damp wood and cheap coffee. He had this fire in him, this desperate need to prove the world wrong. And I was his biggest believer. I remember the nights we spent huddled over his laptop. I was working 2 jobs, one at a diner and one as a junior analyst, just to make sure our rent was paid. David was trying to start his firm. Every time a door slammed in his face, I was the one who opened it back up. I wrote his business plans. I edited his emails. I coached him on how to speak to investors. I was his silent partner in every sense of the word. I didn't care about the credit. I didn't care about the money back then. I just wanted us to win. One day, Elena, he used to say, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, one day I'm going to give you everything. You won't have to work. You won't have to worry. I'm going to build a kingdom for you. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? The first 5 years were a climb. We struggled, we saved, and eventually the firm took off. Suddenly, the studio apartment was replaced by a condo. The condo was replaced by a mansion. The worn-out shoes were replaced by designer labels. As the money grew, David grew, but he didn't grow with me. He grew away from me. He started staying at the office until midnight. He said it was the cost of success. He started taking business trips to cities he never used to visit. He said it was expanding the brand. I told myself I was being a supportive wife. I told myself that this was the life we had worked for. But the kingdom he promised me started to feel like a very expensive cage. I stopped being his partner and started being his +1. I was the woman who organized his social calendar, the woman who made sure his shirts were pressed, the woman who smiled at the corporate dinners while he talked over me. He forgot that I was the one who taught him how to talk in the first place. He began to treat me like a piece of furniture, something reliable, something that had always been there, but something he no longer really noticed. I was just Elena, the wife, the backdrop to a spectacular life. And that's when she appeared, Chloe. She was 25, fresh out of grad school, and hired as his executive assistant. The first time I met her at the company Christmas party, I felt a chill. It wasn't because she was beautiful, though she was. It was because of the way David looked at her. He looked at her with the same fire he used to have for me when we were in that studio apartment. I pushed the thought away. I felt guilty for even thinking it. "You're being insecure, Elena," I told myself. "She's just an employee. He loves you. Look at the life he built for you." I didn't realize that he wasn't building that life for me. He was building it to replace me. The first real crack happened 6 months ago. It was a Tuesday. David was supposed to be in Chicago for a conference. He'd called me that morning, sounding rushed, telling me how much he missed me and how he couldn't wait to be home on Friday. "I love you, Elena," he'd said. "I love you too, David," I replied. I believe those were the last true words I ever said to him. That afternoon, I went to our favorite high-end grocery store to pick up some wine for a dinner I was hosting for my sister. As I was walking through the parking lot, I saw a car that looked exactly like David's SUV. I laughed to myself. There must be 1,000 white SUVs in this city, I thought. But then I saw the license plate. It was his. My heart did a strange, uncomfortable flip. Maybe he'd come home early. Maybe the conference was canceled and he wanted to surprise me. I walked toward the car, a smile forming on my face. I was going to surprise him. But as I got closer, the passenger door opened. A woman stepped out. It was Chloe. She was laughing, her hair tossed back, holding a bag from an expensive jewelry store. Then the driver's side door opened. David stepped out. He wasn't in Chicago. He wasn't at a conference. He walked around the car, put his arm around her waist, and kissed her. It wasn't a quick kiss. It was deep. It was familiar. It was the kind of kiss you give someone when you think no one is watching. I stood there frozen between two cars, my bags of groceries feeling like they weighed 100 pounds. The world didn't spin. It didn't blur. Everything became horrifyingly sharp. I saw the way his fingers brushed the small of her back. I saw the way she leaned into him. I saw the watch on his wrist, the one I'd bought him for our 10th anniversary. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run over there and slap him until my hands hurt. I wanted to demand to know why. Why her? Why now? Why this? But I didn't. Something cold and ancient took over my body. It was a survival instinct I didn't know I had. If I confronted him there in a parking lot, he would lie. He would make excuses. He would gaslight me and tell me I was seeing things, or that it was just a goodbye between colleagues. He would have time to hide the money. He would have time to talk to a lawyer. I realized in that moment that I wasn't just dealing with a cheater. I was dealing with a man who had been lying to my face for months while I paid half the bills and supported his ego. I watched them walk into a nearby bistro, hand in hand. I got into my car. I sat there for an hour, watching the restaurant door. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't put the key in the ignition. I remembered every late night at the office. I remembered every stressful business trip. I remembered every time he told me I was overreacting when I asked why he was being so distant. He had made me feel like I was the problem. He had made me feel like I was crazy. "No more," I whispered to the empty car. "No more." I didn't go home and cry. I didn't call my sister. I called a man I'd met years ago through my work as an analyst, a man who specialized in digital forensics. "I need to see everything," I told him when he picked up. "I need every text, every email, every bank transfer. I need to know exactly who my husband is when he's not with me." "That's a big job, Elena," he said. "Are you sure you want to know?" "I don't just want to know," I said, my voice finally steady. "I want to be certain." That was the beginning of my second job. My first job was being the perfect wife for the next 6 months. My second job was building a dossier that would destroy the man I once loved. And the perfect opportunity was already on the calendar. David's 40th birthday, the biggest night of his career. He wanted a party. I was going to give him a show the world would never forget. The hardest part wasn't finding out the truth. The hardest part was waking up the next morning and pretending I didn't know it. When David rolled over in bed at 7 a.m., his breath warm against my neck, I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn around and wrap my hands around his throat, not to hurt him, but to wake him up from the lie he was living. But I didn't. I lay there, staring at the sunlight filtering through our expensive silk curtains, and I practiced my breathing. In, out, smile, repeat. "Good morning, beautiful," he whispered, his voice thick with sleep. The same voice that had been whispering to Chloe just hours before. "Morning, birthday boy," I said, turning to him with a smile that felt like it was cracking my face in half. "Only 1 month until the big 4-0. Are you ready for your surprise?" He chuckled and pulled me close. "As long as I have you, I'm ready for anything." In that moment, I realized David wasn't just a cheater. He was a sociopath. He could look me in the eye, hold me in the bed I paid for, and tell me he loved me while he was planning a future with someone else. He didn't feel guilt. He felt powerful. He thought he was so much smarter than me that I wouldn't even notice the knife he'd tucked between my shoulder blades. For the next 30 days, I became a ghost in my own life. I was the perfect hostess. I organized his dry cleaning. I made his favorite morning smoothies. I listened to him complain about work stress and Chloe's incompetence at the office. Yes, he actually complained about her to me. He used her as a scapegoat to explain why he was late or why he was distracted. "She's just so young, Elena," he'd say, shaking his head. "I have to spend so much time fixing her mistakes. I don't know why the board hired her." It was a masterclass in gaslighting. He was trying to make me pity him for having to spend time with his mistress. Meanwhile, my digital forensics friend, Marcus, was sending me files every night. I would wait until David was asleep, then I would sit in the guest bathroom with the door locked, the volume on my phone turned all the way down, and I would watch my life dissolve. I saw the emails. He didn't just love her, he was obsessed with her. He sent her poems I had written for him back in college, passing them off as his own. He promised her that the old ball and chain would be gone by the end of the year. But it wasn't just the affair that Marcus found. It was something much, much darker. One night, Marcus called me at 2 a.m. His voice was grim. "Elena, you need to sit down. This isn't just about a girl anymore. Your husband is a thief." I thought the affair was the bottom of the pit. I was wrong. Marcus sent me a spreadsheet that mapped out our joint finances over the last 2 years. As an analyst, I understood numbers better than David ever did, and the numbers were screaming. David had been slowly, methodically draining our retirement accounts. He wasn't just spending money on jewelry and hotel rooms. He was moving large sums, $10,000 here, $15,000 there, into a private offshore account in the Cayman Islands. But here was the kicker. The account wasn't just in his name, it was in the name of a new LLC he had registered 6 months ago. The name of the company? C&D Innovations. Chloe and David. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was preparing to leave me with nothing. He knew that in a divorce, I would be entitled to half the assets we built together. So, he was making sure there would be no assets left to divide. He was stealing my future to build a kingdom for a 25-year-old who hadn't contributed a single cent to his success. I sat on the bathroom floor, the cold tile pressing against my skin, and I felt a shift in my soul. The last lingering bit of love I had for David, the tiny, pathetic spark that hoped this was all a misunderstanding, went out. I didn't feel like crying anymore. I felt like a predator. David thought he was playing a game of checkers. He thought he could move his pieces, take my queen, and walk away with the board. He forgot that I was the one who taught him the game. He forgot that I was the one who built the board in the first place. I realized then that a simple divorce wouldn't be enough. If I served him papers now, he'd flee. He'd take that offshore money, grab Chloe, and disappear to a country with no extradition. He'd win. I couldn't let him win. I needed him to stay. I needed him to feel safe. I needed him to believe that his 40th birthday was going to be the greatest night of his life. I needed him to be standing in a room full of his peers, his investors, his parents, and his mistress when the hammer finally fell. I called Marcus back. "Can you get into the company server, the one they use for the annual presentations?" "Elena, that's corporate espionage," Marcus whispered. "No," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "It's asset recovery. David is using company funds to pay for Chloe's apartment. If the board finds out, his promotion isn't just canceled. He's fired for cause. He loses his stock options. He loses his reputation. he loses everything. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "What do you want me to do?" Marcus finally asked. "I'm making a video," I said. "A tribute to David's 40 years of integrity. I want you to help me make sure that when I press play at the party, the whole world sees exactly what I've seen." The planning for the party became my obsession. To the outside world, I was the doting, extravagant wife. I spent $50,000 on the catering. I hired a 12-piece orchestra. I invited every major player in David's industry. I even invited Chloe, personally. I called her into David's office one day when I knew he was at a dentist appointment, which I knew was actually a lunch date with her. "Chloe, dear," I said, sitting in David's leather chair, looking every bit the queen of the castle. "I'm finalizing the guest list for David's birthday. You've been such a help to him this year. I'd love for you to be there. In fact, I'd like you to sit at the head table right next to his parents." The look on her face was priceless. It was a mix of pure terror and smug triumph. She thought I was so pathetic, so blind, that I was welcoming my husband's mistress to the family table. I'd be honored, Mrs. Sterling," she stuttered. "Please," I smiled, and the smile actually felt real because I knew what was coming. "Call me Elena. We're going to be seeing a lot of each other soon." David was thrilled when he found out. He thought it was the ultimate sign that he had won. He had the wife at home and the mistress at the table, and neither one was causing him any trouble. His ego was so bloated he couldn't see the trap closing around him. The week before the party, David was promoted to senior partner. It was the job he had killed for. It came with a massive bonus. A bonus that was scheduled to be deposited into our joint account the day after his birthday. He didn't know that I had already spoken to a lawyer, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state. I didn't tell her I wanted a divorce. I told her I wanted a liquidation. "We wait until the bonus hits," she advised. Then we filed the emergency injunction to freeze all accounts, citing the evidence of his embezzlement and offshore transfers. If we timing it right, he won't be able to touch a single dollar. "And the party?" she asked. "The party is for the public record," I said. 2 days before the event, the tribute video was finished. I watched it alone in our home theater. It started with beautiful photos of us, our wedding, our first house, David holding my hand. But at the 5-minute mark, the music changed. The beautiful piano melody turned into a low, distorted hum. The photos of us faded away, replaced by the photos Marcus had recovered. David and Chloe in the bistro, David and Chloe entering a hotel, screenshots of his bank transfers to the Cayman Islands. And then, the audio. Marcus had managed to bug David's office. The video ended with a recording of David talking to Chloe. "Elena's just a stepping stone, babe. She's the one who paid for the foundation, but you're the one who gets to live in the house. Once the bonus clears, I'm out. She won't even know what hit her." I sat in the dark theater, the blue light of the screen reflecting in my eyes. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel betrayed anymore. I felt like a storm. "You're right about one thing, David," I whispered to the empty room. "I'm definitely the foundation, and tonight I'm taking the whole house down." The day of the party arrived. The tent was up in the garden. The lights were twinkling. The guests were arriving in their finest clothes. David was upstairs, whistling as he put on his tuxedo, looking at himself in the mirror like he was a god. He walked down the stairs and kissed my cheek. "Ready to make history, Elena?" "Oh, David," I said, adjusting his bow tie one last time. "You have no idea. Tonight is going to be the most talked about night in this city's history." I followed him out into the garden. The music started, the champagne flowed, the guests cheered. The stage was set, the audience was ready, and the tribute was about to begin. The garden was a masterpiece. I had spent months planning every detail, not because I loved David, but because I wanted his fall to be as steep as possible. If you're going to drop someone from a height, you have to make sure they're standing on the highest mountain first. Strings of amber fairy lights draped from the oak trees. The scent of expensive lilies and roasting lamb filled the air. My parents were there looking proud. David's parents, Arthur and Martha, were at the head table beaming at their son. Even the CEO of the firm, Mr. Sterling, no relation, though David always joked they were brothers in business, was present. And right there, in a dress that cost more than a month's rent, sat Chloe. She was sipping champagne, laughing at something David's father said. She looked like she belonged. She looked like she was already auditioning for my role. David was glowing. He was moving from table to table. The ultimate politician. He'd just been promoted. He was 40 and he felt invincible. "Elena, darling," he said, sliding an arm around my waist as we stood near the buffet. "This is incredible. You really outdid yourself. Everyone is talking about it." "I wanted it to be a night you'd never forget, David," I said. I looked him dead in the eyes. A true turning point. He kissed my forehead, a dry, empty gesture, and whispered, "I'm so lucky to have you in my corner." I felt a surge of nausea, but I forced it down. Just 30 more minutes, I told myself. 30 more minutes of being the lucky wife. At 9 p.m., the music dimmed. It was time. David took his seat at the center of the head table. Chloe was to his left, just one seat away. I walked to the small stage at the front of the garden, the microphone heavy in my hand. "Good evening, everyone," I began. My voice was projected clearly across the lawn. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate David's 40th birthday. As many of you know, David and I have been together for 12 years. We started in a studio apartment with nothing but a dream and a shared laptop." I saw David's mother wipe a tear from her eye. The crowd leaned in, expecting a beautiful, sentimental speech. "David always said he was building a kingdom for us," I continued. "And tonight, I wanted to show you all exactly what that kingdom looks like. I've put together a special tribute. It's a collection of moments. The moments that define the man David Sterling has become." I looked at the tech booth and gave the signal. "Please," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, "watch closely, because you're about to see the side of David that even I didn't know existed until very recently." I stepped off the stage into the shadows. The giant screen hummed to life. The video started with high-definition footage of our wedding. At last played softly in the background. The guests smiled, some cheered. David leaned back, a smug grin on his face, probably thinking about how great he looked in his tuxedo 10 years ago. Then, at exactly the 3-minute mark, the music stopped. It didn't just fade, it cut out into a harsh digital static. The screen went black for 3 seconds. Then, a new image appeared. It wasn't a wedding photo. It was a grainy, low-light photograph of David and Chloe in the parking lot of the jewelry store. David's hand was on her waist. They were kissing. A collective gasp went through the garden. It was the sound of 100 people holding their breath at once. David froze. His glass of champagne was halfway to his mouth. I watched the color drain from his face in the blue light of the projector. Then the text messages started scrolling. "I'm so bored at home, babe. The warden is asleep. I'm coming over. Can't wait until the bonus hits so I can leave her for good." The silence in the garden was so heavy, it felt like it was crushing the flowers. Then came the financial records. Marcus had done a brilliant job. The screen showed the bank transfers, thousands of dollars moving from our joint savings into the offshore account for C&D Innovations. "What is this?" David's father stood up, his voice trembling. "David, what is this?" David didn't answer. He couldn't. He was staring at the screen as the final piece of evidence played, the audio recording from his office. "Elena's just a stepping stone, babe. Once the bonus clears, I'm out. She won't even know what hit her." The audio looped, twice, 3 times. She won't even know what hit her. The screen went black. The garden lights stayed off for 5 long seconds before I signaled the tech to turn them back on. The transformation of the crowd was instantaneous. They weren't looking at a senior partner anymore. They were looking at a thief and a traitor. Mr. Sterling, the CEO, was standing near the bar. His face was a mask of cold fury. He didn't care about the cheating, but he cared very much about a partner using company time and resources to fund a secret LLC and embezzle personal funds. Chloe was the first to break. She stood up, her face flushed with shame, and tried to run toward the house. But there was nowhere to go. My sister, who I'd tipped off earlier, was standing in the doorway, blocking the path. David finally found his voice. He stood up, knocking his chair over. "Elena, this is a lie. It's a deep fake. You're insane." He looked around at the guests, his hands shaking. Everyone listen to me. My wife has had a breakdown. She's trying to destroy me because she's jealous. I walked back onto the stage. I didn't need the microphone anymore, but I used it anyway. I'm not jealous, David, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. I'm just thorough. The bank records are verified. The audio is authenticated. And the board of directors, they received the full file an hour before the party started. I looked at Mr. Sterling. The CEO nodded slowly. David, Mr. Sterling said, his voice booming across the lawn. Don't bother coming in on Monday. Your security clearance has been revoked. We will be conducting a full audit of your department. Expect to hear from our legal team by morning. The party didn't end with a bang. It ended with a slow, agonizing wither. Guests began to leave immediately. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't thank the hostess. They just whispered to each other, casting disgusted glances at David as they hurried to their cars. It was the ultimate social execution. In this circle, reputation was everything, and David's reputation was now a pile of ash. David's parents were the last to leave the head table. His father wouldn't even look at him. His mother, the woman who had always defended him, walked up to me and took my hand. I am so sorry, Elena, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. We had no idea he was capable of this. I know, I said. Neither did I. When the garden was finally empty, except for the caterers who were awkwardly packing up the uneaten cake, David was sitting on the edge of the fountain, his head in his hands. I walked over to him. I felt no pity. I felt no sadness. I felt the kind of relief you feel when you finally put down a heavy weight you've been carrying for years. Why? He asked. His voice was cracked, small. Why did you have to do it like this, in front of everyone? Because you did it to me in front of everyone, I replied. You sat at dinner with my parents and lied. You stood in front of the board and lied. You slept in my bed and lied. You wanted a kingdom, David? Well, look around. This is it. I'm going to sue you, he hissed, looking up with a flash of his old arrogance. I'm going to take you for everything. With what money? I asked. The offshore account has already been flagged by the IRS. My lawyer filed an emergency injunction 2 hours ago. Every cent you moved is frozen. And the bonus? The company is withholding it pending the fraud investigation. He looked like I'd physically struck him. The realization that he was truly, utterly broke finally hit him. And Chloe? I asked, nodding toward the driveway where a taxi was pulling away. She didn't stay to help you, did she? She was never in love with you, David. She was in love with the senior partner. And that guy doesn't exist anymore. I took my house keys out of my pocket and held them out. You have 10 minutes to get your essentials. The locks are being changed at midnight. If you're still here, I'm calling the police for trespassing. Elena, please, he started, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. Don't. You told her I was just a stepping stone. Well, you forgot one thing about stones, David. If you try to stand on one that isn't stable, you're the one who ends up in the dirt. I walked into the house, closed the door, and locked it. For the first time in 12 years, the air in my home felt clean. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, but they were battles I was prepared to win. Because David had embezzled funds and attempted to hide assets, the court was not kind to him. I was awarded the house, 80% of our remaining joint assets, and a significant portion of his future earnings as restitution. Not that he had much in the way of future earnings. He was blacklisted from every major firm in the city. Last I heard, he was living in a small apartment 2 towns over, working a middle management job at a logistics company. No tuxedos, no champagne, no kingdom. People ask me if I regret the way I did it. They ask if I could have just served him papers and walked away quietly. My answer is always the same. Silence is what allows people like David to thrive. If I had left quietly, he would have spun a story. He would have told everyone I was the crazy one, or that we grew apart. He would have kept his job, kept his bonus, and kept his mistress. He would have learned nothing. By bringing the truth into the light, I didn't just get a divorce, I got my dignity back. I realized that for 12 years, I had been the architect of his life, but I had forgotten to build a room for myself. I had poured all my talent, my energy, and my love into a man who was nothing more than a hollow shell. I don't hate him anymore. Hate is a feeling, and I don't have any feelings left for David. He's just a lesson I had to learn. I'm still an analyst. I'm still the woman who can see patterns in chaos. But now, I use those skills for myself. I started my own firm. It's small, but it's mine. And the foundation? The foundation is built on truth. To anyone watching this who feels like they're being used or like they're just a stepping stone, remember that you are the one who decides where you are placed. You are not a backdrop to someone else's success. You are the architect of your own life. If someone treats your loyalty like a weakness, show them that your strength is what was keeping them standing all along. David thought his birthday was going to be the start of his greatest chapter. He was right. It was the chapter where I finally realized I didn't need him to be a queen. The party is over, and for the first time, I'm the only one dancing. Betrayal often comes from those we've helped the most. The story serves as a reminder that loyalty must be earned and respected. When someone uses your support to build a life that excludes or demeans you, reclaiming your power, publicly and legally, is not just revenge. It is a restoration of balance. True success is not a kingdom built on lies, but the peace of mind that comes from living authentically.